CTV News on the day that thousands of people living in the eastern suburbs of Christchurch were able to flush their toilets for the first time in 74 days and nights. Christchurch City councillors are heading to San Francisco in the hope of learning from their rebuild.
So you've got 5 council members going. How important is it to learn from this trip?
Well, I guess it's being able to see something with your own eyes. You know, a city that's gone through a horrendous disaster like Christchurch 20 years ago, and to be able to stand there and see it, walk the streets and have a look at what decisions they made and actually what the implications of those decisions were, and to judge for yourself how that could be best incorporated to Christchurch. I guess it's the lessons that they learned from it: infrastructure, psychological issues, central city, business, transportation, but perhaps more importantly, find out what they did wrong.
So what aspects are you going to look at? You're going to look at businesses, housing, roading, what sort of things?
Yeah, all of that stuff, as well as, like I said, the transportation issues, infrastructure, resident response, especially tourism and business confidence. You know, a question that I've got, and I'm sure many more will come out of it, but we've got people that are too scared to go back into 3-storey buildings here in Christchurch. They've got 60-storey buildings. I want to talk to their experts, but also talk to their lay people about how long it actually takes and what to expect until, like my inclination is, it's a matter of time until people feel more confident with their surroundings and that the buildings are safe. But it would be a fantastic opportunity to be able to see with your own eyes and hear from these people what sort of timeframes to expect.
And how important do you think a trip like this is?
I think it's hugely important. I don't think you can put a price on seeing something with your own eyes, especially when the council is charged with a monumental job to implement a central city plan by Christmas time. It's a burning platform. We've got one shot at it and we've got to get it right. Look, I sit on RMA hearings panels, and I've probably changed my opinion on how we were going to what decision we were going to make after actually doing a site visit, probably 30 to 40% of the time. You know, you can read all the reports you like, you can listen to all the submissions, but there is no substitute for actually seeing something and walking around, smelling the environment and just getting a real feel for what that's going to mean.
Can you just tell me a little bit about how this trip was made possible?
Well, it all started from San Francisco, extending a very warm invitation to Christchurch City councillors to come over there and learn from their officials on what they got right and what they got wrong, and keyed up a number of amazing meetings with their key stakeholders. We were originally looking at using a professional development fund which would enable us to do this, which is budgeted for. It exists for purposes like this. It got a bit political and we ummed and ahed about it, and I guess in this job the perception issue is a very, very real one, and if my boss, the public, don't want me to go or they feel uneasy about it, well, I have no mandate to do that. So Air New Zealand stepped in very kindly and said, look, we back this trip. We think that it's absolutely invaluable for them to go and for them to see this, so let's remove all the debate and we'll sponsor the councillors to do that. So then we decided amongst ourselves that also the 5 travelling councillors that we would also pay for our accommodation and our meals, taxis, car rental, all of our own pocket too, because I think at a time like this the perception was there that it's very tough to be spending public money when we've got so much to do. So it's great that this can go ahead. We can learn so much and it will be at zero cost to the Christchurch ratepayer.
A lot of geological data has been collected since February.
Progressively, since the 22nd of February, the work is starting to focus on some short-term recovery-related projects. Engineers and scientists are supporting the recovery process by providing an analysis of the situation that they're finding in terms of the buildings, the liquefaction and the lateral spreading, and also the landsliding around the Port Hills, and of course supported by the seismology work that's being led by GNS Science. The team there is analysing the seismic activity and the ongoing aftershocks.
What further work are scientists and engineers likely to be involved in the coming months?
Right, looking forward, right now we're starting a phase of short-term projects which are really to do with information that's needed quickly to make decisions around how the city recovery process will get underway. What's the information we need? So, for example, in the engineering side of things, the work is focusing on building codes and issues around how buildings performed and what the state of the building stock is. The liquefaction side, as I think everybody will be well aware, there's a lot of work ongoing to try and define the extent of the liquefaction, the areas most susceptible, and gathering the information needed to make decisions about either the remedial work needed or the possibility of some areas needing to be perhaps abandoned from the point of view of housing. On the Port Hills there will be ongoing work looking at the landslides, monitoring, and then progressively we'll see some longer term research coming out. There's a real need for us to learn from these earthquakes and to provide guidance not just for Christchurch but for New Zealand and also application internationally.
Wellington business people have rallied to the aid of their Christchurch counterparts with a special campaign they're calling Hands Up.
We had no idea that it couldn't be done, and we needed to find a like-minded someone.
Christchurch businesses are looking to the future, to getting back on their feet. It won't be easy, and there's a lot of work to be done. It's time to put our hands up.
Wellington is putting its hand up
to help Canterbury businesses.
For 48 hours, our shop front is yours.
Our customers are yours, our staff are yours.
We're putting together an expo where Canterbury is open for business in Wellington.
We need a hand.
People to set up stands.
And people to work on the stands.
People to promote and support us.
It's all hands on deck.
This isn't just fun and crazy.
This is business.
These businesses need our help.
And all the money goes straight into the accounts of the Christchurch businesses.
This is personal.
We're putting our hands up. To put your hand up, go to the website now. Christchurch, sign up and let us help you. Make sure your business is in the expo. Wellington, give us a hand.
All we needed to find a like-minded someone who had no idea that it couldn't be done.
Well, actually, it started with a friend of mine who's had his business, West End Jewellers. He's had that demolished for the second time, and he also lost his home this time. I've got a business myself, a kitchen business, and we've always shared stories back and forth about how they've been going. So I sort of can see this would be just, there's only so much a business can take.
And obviously there's been a huge response.
Oh, absolutely amazing. We came up with the idea, maybe we could help sell some of his stock, and then it sort of grew within one day to maybe we could start an expo where we could bring the Christchurch businesses to Wellington. I think we've done it the right way. We set up a board and we've managed to get the Wellington City Council behind us. We've got the Employers Chamber of Commerce, both in Wellington and in Porirua, who've been key members of it. And we put together a YouTube clip that you saw before where we had everybody we rang up. They just said, look, you let us know what we have to do and we'll do it for you. We've had all the freight sponsored so that we can actually get the Christchurch retailers, if they put together their freight, we will actually bring it through to Wellington, and the TSB Bank Arena's been completely donated. In fact, the security person, who happens to be a friend, he was in Christchurch when one of the restaurants fell down around him. So he said, look, just let us know, we'll do the security for the event. And we're really hoping that this will be an amazing expo for everybody. We've really made sure that we've got a great mix of businesses on board, where there'll be everything from homeware, giftware, right through to kids' furniture, to menswear. We've got a brewery coming, we've got a cafe, one of your companies, C1, and they've also got OK Juice, and a lot of the fashion retailers. We've even been talking to Richard Ballantyne today, so hopefully we'll get the Ballantyne Shoe Department to come through as our flagship for the shoes, and obviously the jewellery, and we've even got a lot of the art centre coming, so there's going to be a market in the middle and there'll be entertainment going, so it'll be an amazing event, I think, for the Wellington public to attend to, and if we can get some funds back into these Christchurch businesses, I think that's really what they're needing, is that cash injection back into their companies to keep them going before all this government funding does show up. I'm sure it will.
A Māori elder in Christchurch says city planners mustn't forget what might be under their buildings.
Rick Tau, leader for the Hapu Ngāi Hurere, says those planning our future city should take time to consider the land on which Christchurch is built.
The realisation of the environment has to be considered first by all the planners. I have been saying to the local authorities for the last 30-odd years that you have built on a swamp that's already on a swamp. And the day will come when you get wet. Now, we all know, that is us of Tuahuziri, that Christchurch has always been a swamp. And it is part and parcel of the riverbed of the Waimakariri River. And so they are in danger of the elements from the world of Tāne and the world of Tangaroa. But more importantly, Lytton Harbour was created out of volcanic eruptions, and that's why we give the name to the Port Hills, the smouldering boulders of Tamate Pōkai Whenua, which is the name that our ancestors had given to it about 600-700 years ago. But also all around Peninsula and in Sumner, there are what we call nawha, or hot water springs. Now they are there. There's 3 over Rapaki, a couple of good ones over Rakaroa, in Lake Ellesmere and in Kokororata, Port Levy. Those are all relations to Ruamoko, the god of earthquakes. So those things are already there. And so they have come back. And so in any planning, the planners have got to take into consideration the nature of the environment, because the cost of insurance is going to be tremendous if you continually build upon a swampland that's already on the swamp. So particular consideration has got to be given in the process of granting resource consents, because why do they want to keep on building and allocating resource consents to build on swamps that is already on the swamp? Will they understand the importance of the safety of the people that are required to live here? That's my concern.
Engineers on the deconstruction of the Catholic Cathedral are steadily working towards removing the large dome.
Badly damaged by the quakes, even the engineers on site at the Cathedral of the Blessed Sacrament haven't been able to get a good look inside. Work at present is concentrating on removing the North Tower that used to house the bells. Plans have been drawn up to build a ring around the base of the copper dome and then lift it to the ground, but this is still 4 or 5 weeks away. All material is being removed and catalogued so it can go back in the same spot when construction commences.
The need for help continues as winter sets in, and one group to step up to the base is the National Marae in Pages Road.
The group is called Mata Waka, catering for all people.
It's an organisation which was formed about 25-30 years ago for the sole purpose of looking after those who travelled from the North Island and took up permanent residence in the South Island. And in 1985-89, I'm pretty sure 85-89, we registered the organisation, and we took liberty in giving it the definition to its name, Ngā Mata Waka, and it means the confederation of all tribes, all nations, all peoples, exclusive of none. And we've enjoyed working closely with the Crown agencies, in particular the Ministry of Social Development, Te Puni Kōkiri, who have been instrumental in setting up the rec centres around Christchurch, to which we are one here, as well as working with the judiciary, setting up an alternative to the court system in town, which has been damaged.
Mr. Jews also paid tribute to all those who died in the quakes.
I think before I go any further, I think what I need to do is I need to pay tribute to all those that lost their lives in a recent earthquake, and especially those from your television program who are residents in your building, and pay my respects to all the families that lost loved ones there.
Mata Waka has a range of services they can offer.
Well, we've got 15 workers working on the road from morning till night, and their job is to visit families, identify the problems, regroup, how best to fix those problems, provide them with the necessary resources to deal with those problems in the interim, on an interim, and long term to make contact with the local authorities and the Earthquake Commission to ensure that their difficulties are dealt with appropriately and expeditiously.
Mata Waka is based at the National Marae, Ngā Hau e Whā.
A children's book raising thousands of dollars for Christchurch.
The children's picture book, The Quakey Cat, has now raised $100,000 for Christchurch. The book was created after the September earthquake. Written by Diana Noonan and illustrated by Gavin Bishop, The Quakey Cat was only published in December. Illustrator Gavin Bishop says he only had 3 weeks to complete the illustrations and worked 14-hour days.
And the whole book was produced here in Christchurch. So I took the illustrations out to the designer who was here in Christchurch. The designer put the text into place, got them ready for the printer, took them to Spectrum Print. Precision printers did the scans, and the books were printed here. I was able to go down and see them being printed down at the factory, Printing Works. And then they were bound, and then the book was finally ready to launch on the 9th of December.
He says the book has seen an overwhelming response.
Terrific. Terrific response. Scholastic did a very generous and wise thing. When the book was published, they presented every Year 1 and Year 2 child in the earthquake-affected area with a free copy of the book, which amounted to something like 14 or 15,000 copies. And so within one day, 15,000 copies were out there in circulation. And then the book started selling. We had a launch, as I said, on the 9th of December, and it was the biggest book launch I've ever been to.
Proceeds from the sales of Quakey Cat, including all of Noonan and Bishop's royalties, are being donated to various Christchurch charities. Quakey Cat has appeared on the New Zealand Top 10 bestseller list and is also being sold by Scholastic worldwide, with funds continuing to be donated to Christchurch.
Currently, it's selling in Australia, Britain and America, and proportions of the sales in those countries is coming back here to the Red Cross.
Presentation of the fundraising cheques was made yesterday to Mayor Bob Parker. This was for $50,000 for the mayoral fund. The cheque was donated by Diana Murray, who's publishing manager of Scholastic New Zealand.
Duck shooting season kicks off this weekend, and our animal activists are calling for change.
Well, this Saturday the duck shooting season starts again, and again we're going to see a lot of animals going to be killed, maybe about 1 million birds, but the worst thing is that hundreds of thousands will be injured, and that means that they're going to be shot but not killed outright. And a lot of the hunters will not be able to get to these birds because they will get shot, but they will fly on or they will fall in the reeds, and those birds will be left to die a very slow and painful death. And every year that happens, we know that the nature of shotgun shooting is that animals are going to get crippled. Overseas research shows that even the best hunters will still cripple about 20% of the birds they shoot. So that means thousands and thousands of animals that will be left to die a very slow death. And we think it's appalling and it should stop.
Duck shooting is a huge tradition in many rural areas, particularly around Canterbury. Hahn says a change needs to be made soon, and he hopes some change will be seen this year.
Well, what we're doing this year is we're putting a lot of pressure on the Minister of Conservation, Kate Wilkinson, to initiate research into crippling rates in New Zealand. Because all the research that's available is from overseas, and it's really easy for dog and for fish and game to say, oh, well, it doesn't happen in New Zealand. But we know it does, because there's no difference between shotgun shooting in New Zealand or overseas. So we say, well, if you think it's okay, do the research and you'll see. But so far, dog and fish and game both refuse to carry out research into crippling rates, because clearly they don't want to know what's going on, because if it's really bad, it may well spell the end of duck shooting in New Zealand.
He says they want to see more of a reaction from the government.
Well, the Minister of Conservation is getting advised by Fish and Game on these matters, and Fish and Game is a pro-hunting group. So it's a crazy situation, because the pro-hunters are clearly not going to look into the welfare issues because they know that they're going to be serious. So far we haven't had much luck at all with the government, and we really want that to change. We want them to look at the research because, hey, if they think everything is fine, well then the research will bear that out. But we know that it's not going to be, and I think they know as well.
So what else would you like to see happen?
Well, there are a number of other issues. We obviously want duck shooting banned, but as long as it's allowed, we think there should be much better rules surrounding duck shooting. For instance, we believe that duck shooters should have compulsory training, so that for one, they can prove that they can actually shoot and reasonably aim at an animal and kill it better than what they do now. But also that they can identify the species, because every year you will have protected species and non-game bird species being shot by hunters. We've been out on the water a lot and we found those birds. So that's one thing. And another thing that should happen is we should stop letting young people go out hunting. Because at the moment you can take your 5-year-old out shooting, and here we have these little kids aiming these heavy shotguns and basically doing target practice on live animals. That's just completely abhorrent, and that should never happen. And also these kids can't make up their own mind whether what they're doing is ethical or whether they should be doing it. So we believe that under 16-year-olds should never be allowed to go out shooting.
CTV News, I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.